Annie, I hate to talk, but could you increase the volume at all?
So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay. Can everybody see that?
You're good, Annie. We can see it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so this is our maker training for July, and we're aiming to have at least one maker training a month. So if you have any additional questions after this, you're practicing, and then you just have questions come up, you can always ask us, and then you can always bring it to the next maker training session. The What's Your Word shirt is actually we sell it on our website, MyIntent.org. So for today's lesson, I wanted to walk through what MyIntent is, who is a MyIntent Maker. I would love to share some stories from the Maker group and from our beautiful makers of how they've used their Maker kit with their families and things like that. And then we'll talk about the word finding technique. So as a maker, it's a part of the conversation of you asking someone for their word before we get to the stamping portion of it. And so being a maker, it's really, that part of it, the conversation part of it is like 90% of it, and then 10% is the actual stamping, because it is all about that connection that you have with another person. But I'll go through all the stamping things, the setup, stamping 2 words. I know I had a few questions on that. And then I'll talk about the Facebook Maker group, as well as the Intentional Living group, and MyIntent Live. We have some really special sessions coming up, so I'm excited to share that. So at MyIntent, our mission is to be a catalyst for meaningful conversation and positive action. And what that means, anything that we do, we're moving through with that core mission of having these conversations and creating that positive ripple effect. And so we like to say that we're not a jewelry company, that we're actually a service project, because the bracelet and the necklace, all these products, they're a byproduct of this beautiful conversation that we're having, and that connection that you have with someone as you're finding your word, finding their word, and then maybe finding some common ground in that. So we like to say that it starts with you. I think as makers, we're all called to be in service. We have a few teachers, we have a lot of frontline workers in our maker group, actually. And so it's all these like very beautiful souls who are, called to be in service with other people. And we like to remind you that all of that, we're here for you to start with yourself as well. And so we say that when you can fill up your own cup, it sort of pours over, and then you're filling other people's cups as well. This Rumi quote is really nice. It's beautiful in that yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. So it starts with us. Everything starts with us. And to get down into sort of the technical parts of it, it's what is an intention? When you think of an intention, what comes to mind? We can unmute, you can share it in the chat box. But when you think about an intention, for us, we say it's a mental state that represents a commitment to carrying out an action or a way of being for the future. And it's this analogy that you have a watch to tell you the time. So you have your MyIntent bracelet to remind you of your journey in your life, what to do with that time. It's sort of, if we're all sailing in our own ships, our intention is the rudder. And who is a MyIntent Maker is all of you. It's us. It's this community of people who are, called to have these conversations, to have the deeper cut, and to, hold that space for people as they empower themselves to find their own intention and to live the life that they want to live and be the person that they want to be. And so we say it's a active listening. So asking this really deep question that can be really simple, like what's your word? And then just being silent and allowing the other person to fill that space up. And so we're sort of guiding these people in our community, in our families, our friends, into that space that, where they can fill it up completely. And it's a community builder. So we have a couple of teachers on this call. It's beautiful to do this for your students, and for your others and your coworkers and things like that. And it creates a bond, something unforgettable with everyone around you. And so I want to share some stories. I love our maker community so much. And so here's a couple stories that I found really impacted, especially during this time. These are more recent stories. And so it's sort of in this new normal that we're navigating. And so this woman, Wendy, she's a mother, and this is her story. My word for the year is create. I want to create moments, experiences, positive change within my circle of influence. Starting within my home, I was looking for a business my daughters and I could do together to teach them how to be little entrepreneurs while also making a difference. They're learning so much and having fun. Listening to them talk to people about this and the conversations we are having with friends, finding their one word for the year has been life-giving. So she ties the bracelets, they hammer the bracelets, and then her daughters help to mail them out. And so it's creating this sort of family bonding, family activity for Wendy and her daughters, as well as being able to make a difference in the world. This maker, she set up sort of MyIntent bracelet stand, almost like a lemonade stand in her neighborhood. And this was in sort of the beginning, middle-ish of June. And so she was able to give this recent grad, for the grads, a couple of bracelets of intention. And our last story is, so Tamika is one of our makers, and she is actually working in hospital. She's a nurse, and she actually wanted to create bracelets to give to the people in her community that are also essential. So these are the people who work in the hospital that her husband works at, the gas station, the pharmacy, the office, the people just like on her way back and forth from work that are also working. And so just a token of appreciation for those people. And so she got this really cute photo of them together in her local grocery store. And then she also got her son and her husband to help her hand them out. And her 13-year-old said, "Mom, this feels so good." And she's like, "You're right, it felt great." And so it's sort of this, again, this positive ripple effect that's happening by becoming a maker. And so we walk into the word finding technique. And if you have your word, it's really important to sort of like your own journey to finding your word is really the benchmark for how you can help someone find their word. The technique that you use for yourself. We have a technique that I'm going to share with you, but know that your own journey is a great teacher for you as a maker and as a guide as well. So we're, just to recap before we get into this, we're discovering ourselves, finding our own words, and then we're activating our word, our intention, by sharing it with other people and by creating this sort of repetition in our stories and repeating it so that the more we hear it, the more we live into our intention. Just like Leslie said, it's her one decision, and her goals is health. And so that repetition of this is my one decision, I can make a better one and a better one and a better one. And that's just like that domino effect. And last is to serve others. And so we've created this within ourselves, we've shared it with people, and now we get to activate it within others and empower others in finding their intentions. And so before we even begin the conversation, I like to ground myself into, my own intention and why is having this conversation so important to me with this other person. And so I remember to be present, fully present with this other person. It's just me and this other person in this conversation in this moment. And I allow myself to be curious about them. Whatever our relationship is or was before this, it's like they are a new person. And so then with that curiosity, when I ask them for their word, I'm able to ask follow-up questions that, maybe I didn't think of because it's my sister and we're so close already, so I know her. So I allow sort of new spaces for myself to be curious about this person that I love. And so we have 3 core questions that we like to ask. The first one is, what are your goals? I think one of the easiest ways for us to create this conversation is to start with something tangible. And so having goals in your life, that's something that people can really gravitate towards and grab quickly. And so then your intention is that why underneath your goals. And so whenever you ask this question, it's sort of a really great conversation starter. Of course, there are other questions that you can ask. And another one is, what challenge do you want to overcome? And sometimes, we have these goals, but there are obstacles in our life that are like just facing us right there. And sometimes that's something that we want to address before we can get to our goals. And it's that why underneath. Why is it important to overcome this challenge? What is that feeling that you want to have on the other side of this? And then the last question that we like to ask is, what are you passionate about and want to spend more time on? And this is sort of like, I think this, anytime I've asked, it's been like a whoa. That's the first reaction. And it's this idea of like having people notice what brings them joy in their life, or what allows them to just continuously move. And so that passion is really good for them to hone in on focusing on the good things in their life. So I wanted to pause there if anybody had any questions about asking for people's words or the work finding technique or anything like that. Oh, yes, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hi. So my name's Carolisa. So I have a question. So I've been teaching yoga and mindfulness to girls between 8 and 12 for the last 4 years. So I bought this kit kind of to do this work with them. Our summer camp, of course, is canceled this year, but we still are meeting on Zoom. So, but I wonder, could you actually, would you advise like breaking some of these questions up to like different times? Because it seems like each question might help them, like if you ask one question, it almost seems like something could bubble up, and then you ask it in a different way and they're like, wait. Okay, now something has changed a little bit, until they actually come up with just one word. Or can they have like 5? Like, what do you guys suggest for?
You'll be doing it in a group setting?
Yeah, well, we do things in a group setting because then that way we're all listening to each other. And I think it's really healthy for us to learn that as younger children before we, to really listen to each other, because this world moves so fast. And sometimes we don't get a chance to have anyone listen to us. No one's really, so it's kind of a nice thing for the children to know. And it's usually, since it's on Zoom, it's only like 5 of us. So we get through the conversation pretty fast. But yeah, I do like to do it in a group setting when we're not in the studio.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of cute.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to answer in front of the group, they don't have to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that absolutely you can start with one question and sort of have everybody share. And the beauty of group situations is that like one person's story can spark inspiration for another person's story. And so then it really just truly starts with one question, and then you can ask any question that you want on top of that. But it's almost like, where do you want to start, right? Like, where do you want to focus your girls? Because then it could dictate like whether you ask, what challenge do you want to overcome versus what are you passionate about, right? And so that, I think, allowing that conversation and allowing the girls to inspire each other is really that community building portion of this. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. I've been waiting for this kit since last summer camp. Me and the other teacher, like, we're gonna get it. And this year I was like, that's it, I'm just gonna buy this. That's it. Even though we're not in the studio, I am doing this. I got a promo code and I text her. I was like, we got our machine. And it was so exciting. So thank you for hosting this. I've been waiting to do this for a year. Thanks. I'm going to mute myself.
Thanks, Kara. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Does anybody else have any other questions? If you do, you can just unmute yourself because I can't see everyone. But yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is Wendy. I had a question. If you are working with a larger group, so I'm a professional coach, I do business and life coaching, but if I had an audience of say 300 people and I'm doing a workshop and they want to come up with one word to support their organization or their school, how do you work it down to those few that you're choosing from?
So you're is it for a workshop now? Like, you're not in person, you're online in some capacity, or is it?
Oh, well, yeah, I would do it in a virtual workshop setting at this point, but I'm hoping in the fall or 2021 we'll be able to be back live in an actual in-person setting.
Yeah. Awesome. So for a virtual, because awesome that you're a coach. I think that's really, really cool. And so I think that in a much larger setting, right? Like in a 300 person setting, that's a lot of space to hold. And so you can always have like a journaling session where you ask the question and take a few minutes for everyone to write it down for their organization, especially if it's a 300 person workshop with people who are more like high level people in their organizations where they have teams and things like that versus like their own personal word, if that's how you want to do it. But having this like journaling time where people can kind of get out their thoughts, get out their like what's important to them, their vision for their company, and things like that. It might be all different words, and then you can always have people share their words and their stories, and then that can always, again, inspire others because of those stories. I think you would be, because it's on a virtual setting, I'm assuming that you would be collecting words and then sending them out.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and so then you can always have them also put it in the chat box or email you, or have like a survey where they put in the word that they came up with during the session for you. But does that answer your question at all?
It does a bit. I guess the bigger question was if the school or the organization wants one word to support the school in the coming year. So it's not that each individual is going to have their own word. They're working together to come up with a common word.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And
I have an idea too for you.
mm-hmm.
If it is on, if you don't mind me pop it in, if it's on Zoom, you could kind of have an idea of a couple words and talk about them, and then maybe even launch a poll, like you collectively choose between the couple on Zoom.
Okay, so you can do a poll through Zoom. Clearly, I'm not up to speed on my Zooming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can Google how to do that. I don't even know off the top of my head, but I do know there's a way to do it. But that could be a cool feature for you.
Okay, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Wendy. So if we don't have any more questions, I'll move on. We have also these question cards. So we have those 3 questions that we ask, that we typically ask people because they're generally of the 3 different sections of people's lives. We have a deck of question cards that comes with your kit, and I don't know how many people opened their kit and they saw these question cards and they're like, oh my gosh, what the heck? There are 33 questions that you can ask, you can use as conversation starters. And so in a group setting, you can play it in the way that one person draws a card. They read the question, who are your heroes? And then they answer it, and you can either have the next person choose a new card or just go around answering that one question. And sometimes it's like, oh, who are your heroes? And then what about those heroes do you love? What do you admire about those heroes? And then from there, you kind of get these characteristics and you get sort of this, and then the intentions come from that. So it's really fun to do it in a group setting. It's also great for journaling for yourself individually. I like to use mine in the morning when I journal, and it's especially fun, in my personal opinion, with people that you actually know really well, because some of these questions are like, what makes you feel loved? You know, like I know my family, I know my friends, and I think I know what makes them feel loved, but I've never actually asked them that question, you know, and that's kind of the beauty of these cards. It's like you get to know people in your life in a different way, in a way that like, oh, I never thought to ask that question before. And so, yeah, it's really, really fun to just dive in with the people that are around you. So now we get to stamping. Everybody's excited about this. I'm gonna get through the setup, spacing, depth, and I'll stamp 2 words on 1 token. And I'm gonna move my camera. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen, move my camera, and so it might get a little rough. How do I pause?
Annie, while you're switching your setup, I'll try to answer Ruth. Ruth asked, how would you choose which card? So it's kind of fun actually to, you know, just share the deck and like spread the words out on a table wherever you're at, and just have people answer the card maybe that they're drawn to. Just have some fun with it. I don't think you have to be too formal about it, but maybe just ask them, you know, hey, or there's 5 cards here. Maybe you don't want to share the whole deck. I picked out 5 for our chat that I would just love to know more about. Pick the card, the question that is kind of speaking to you the most. That way people have a choice and they'll naturally be drawn to something that they want to share about.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Okay, so before I change the camera angle, I just wanted to show you the stamping base. So this is what our stamping base looks like. There's a higher edge and a lower edge, and then the center peg. And so what's really cool about this is like 2-ish years ago, almost 2 years ago, we created these stickers. So there's like outlines and it helps kind of guide your spacing. And then we also have our letter stamps that come into the kit. And I have my round bracelet that I'm going to stamp on. And so let me adjust this a little bit. Use my cord. It's a little bit messy. Can everybody see that? Okay, awesome. Okay, so I have my bracelet on the center peg with the strings coming up. This will allow us to kind of stamp uninterrupted. And so I like to also lay out my letter stamps like, I like to lay out my letter stamps on the side just so that I know where they are and that I'm not misspelling any words. Here we go. Oh, and of course our hammer. So I'm gonna stamp stay focused. And so I'm gonna start with the bottom word. So whenever anytime that you stamp, you'll be stamping the bottom portion of the token. And so what you want to do is have your letter stamp will always be facing you. So the letter will be facing you always, and that's how you know that it's upright. You'll push the letter stamp against the center peg of the stamping base. So then you'll always have the same horizontal spacing. And so that also allows some stability when you're stamping. And it will get a little bit loud. So I'm gonna do one stamp so that you can hear how loud it is, and then I'll mute it for the other letters. Okay. And so then you get your F. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. And so whenever you, did someone call my name? And so and whenever you go to the next letter, what you'll do is rotate your token to this red line. And so the idea is that you want the center of this letter to be through the red line, and then that'll give you even spacing throughout. So you just rotate it a little bit. Next letter.
Anna, can you do that again?
Yes, absolutely. Showing you the letters. Can you see that? It's too hard to see, but
Yes, I see that.
okay, yeah. So then you'll rotate the token again. So I have FO. Rotate the O to the red line, right here.
To the red line to move it and move it there.
To the next, make the next letter.
Yeah. And then, so you'll always be stamping at the 6 o'clock position. So we're not moving, we're moving the token.
Okay, stamp on.
I don't know if that worked.
Okay. We'll go with the next letter. So does everybody kind of get that? Yep, awesome. I'm gonna stamp the rest of the letters very quickly, and then I'll get into, also the depth of it. As you heard, I like to do about 3 quick stamps. I think that for me is the right amount for how strong I am. But I know a lot of people who do just 1. I know some people who do 2. And so then you can just find sort of your kind of golden spot on that. And something that I wanted to mention before that, what I'm stamping on is a wooden post. Oh yes, I forgot to tell you that. It is just something that it's just something that you would, helps with the sound. So it's not as loud as if I were to stamp on a table. And it also gives like stability in terms of like a really hard surface for like, you know, equal reaction upwards momentum into the stamping base. So then you can kind of get a deeper impression without working so hard. And then, so I'll keep, someone asked to keep my sound on. Is everybody okay with my stamping noise? Is that too loud? Yeah, okay, cool. I'm gonna just do this very quickly. And the reason why we don't start with the middle letter is because it'll give us the correct spacing. So then you don't accidentally misspell something, or, you know, it creates sort of a flow of like turn, stamp, and it kind of creates this meditative thing versus starting with the middle letter can, because it's a blank token, anywhere can be the middle, if that makes sense. And if you don't want to go to the hard store to get this this post cut from a 4x4 log, I've also used an anvil that I got online. And that actually it's a 15-pound anvil, and you can put it on your table, and it is super solid, and it really helps with the sound as well. And yeah, sometimes I like to bring that to events that are local when I know that they have just like a tabletop or something, and like this is a little too short and I don't have a chair at the event. So here's my token. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. But so this is the bottom word. And so I'm going to show you how to do 2 words.
Annie, couple questions. Lorraine wants to know, will we run the risk of double or shadowing if you hit it more than once?
Yes, that is actually something that happens. So the one way to mitigate that is really that having your letter stamp against the middle peg. And also I like to put my finger that's holding the stamp, kind of using my fingers as an anchor. So if you're pushing down with your fingers with the stamp and you're hammering, there shouldn't be much of a bounce. So just using your fingers as anchors as well, so that it's sort of an extension of this middle peg. And I would like to say that if sometimes the shadowing of a letter can give flavor to the bracelet, it ends up being sort of representative of the conversation that you're having with this other person. And so it's, while we want to do the best that we can with stamping, know that like we're hand stamping it for a reason. It's your unique mark and your unique style with this other person. Yeah, so
Awesome.
yeah.
Annie, one other question from Lorraine. She says, just to clarify, is the letter on the red line or in between the red line and the dotted black line?
It is through the center of the letter will go, if you imagine it, will go through the center of the red line. So the middle, so if you have your, I don't know if you can see that, can you? So the center of the D is going, like the red line is lining up through the center of the D. And so then it can be some letters, because like, let's say the letter I, it's very skinny, and the letter W is a little bit fatter. So you'll be able to figure out the spacing. Like the line is really to use as a guide for your own, for how you stamp, because the way that I stamp, I like to put sort of like the center of the letter, or the like the center and then have the letters be a little closer. Like that's my own personal preference in that. Some people like the letter to be like a little bit more spaced out. And so then they'll push the letter a little bit further back behind the red line. So when we created it, the idea was like through the center of each letter, with the knowledge that letters are different sizes and widths.
Okay, Annie, we have a request when you can to show us your anvil. Gail is asking, she says, I found that the tokens don't fit snugly on the center post. So the distance between the center and the outer edge are not always uniform.
Okay. I think that for this, I always like to make sure that the edge of the token, the inner edge of the token is against the inner edge of the outer edge of the stamping peg. So it's almost like I like to make sure everything's kind of like touching something. I know for necklaces, because I like to wear necklaces, so I've stamped on just tokens, and so it's a little looser. So this peg is actually designed more for our bracelets in that way. Like it gives room for the string. But in that case, yeah, I've come into where I've had a letter a little bit taller or a little bit lower, but it's sort of like finding your own groove in like, how do you want your token to sit into this peg? And usually I just like to push everything up against the center peg, just to get that sort of distancing, and then also that feeling of security when I'm stamping, so I don't accidentally like slip and then stamp on my finger. So yeah.
Okay, another question, Annie. Will stamping on a table damage the table?
I have never had it damage a table, but I guess it does depend on the table. If you do stamp on a table, we say stamp over the leg of a table, because that will definitely give you more stability. It will mitigate a little bit more of the sound. And if you have like a thick cutting board or a thick book, that's ideal on a table. My anvil is actually in storage because I'm not doing any events currently. And so doing this at home is sort of the easiest thing. Yeah, but I can, in the Maker group, there is a link to the website, and we can actually link it here. It's, I got it off of harborfreight.com. It's a 15-pound anvil. It's blue, it's really cute. But yeah, any other questions?
Okay, Annie, what's the best thing to do if you stamp a particular letter doesn't completely stamp on the metal? Ugh.
Oh yeah, okay, so I can show you with my D here. It's a little bit light. So my very last letter is like the lightest impression that I have. And so what I can do is, you can actually take your stamp, again, your letter, and sort of feel around for the groove. I know this is scary. It's like trusting your feeling. And it's also a great exercise. I think it's really fun to like kind of, and it kind of clicks into place. And then you can just, again, and then it creates a deeper impression. So there you go. And sometimes I'll miss it, and then it'll be a double stamped letter. And that's okay too. Sometimes it looks really cool like that, depending on the letter. And that's something that, we talk about in a lot of the times as makers, right? We want to give someone the perfect bracelet for this beautiful conversation that we have. And the perfection that we want everyone to focus on is actually the perfection of the conversation. Whatever you stamp outside of that, it's like getting this beautiful handmade gift, and like people more oftentimes than not don't even notice these things. It's just us that notices it. And whenever when I've given something, I was like, oh shoot, sorry, like I kind of like messed that little thing up. And they're like 99% of the times they're like, oh wow, that's cool. That's a like a personality to my bracelet, you know, like my bracelet is unique unto itself. And like, I know that nobody else will ever have this because this is like the conversation that we had. It is just perfect the way it is. So that's usually how the conversation goes. Sometimes it's not, but 99% of the time it is. And
Awesome.
then
Annie, one other, Kara said, I noticed I have to hold the peg very straight in order to get the entire letter.
yes, that is also like when you hammer, you can also practice hammering just on like this sort of, just to feel how the hammer, whenever you hammer down, if it wiggles in any way, where you're hammering. So then yeah, usually you need to have the letters straight up and down so that the imprints of this letter is in contact with your token.
Okay, here's some advice from Arlene. She says, if the center hole feels loose around the peg, try to put a piece of tape around it to tighten the fit. That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wendy wants to know, do your impressions come out differently when you use the anvil?
No, not really. It's just about the same each time, probably because I'm using the same amount of strength. You know, these guns. It's about the same every time. And for me, it's I'm a sound person, and so the rhythm of my own stamping helps me to know, like, okay, like that was a good impression, that was like a little bit off, things like that. And so you'll find your own sort of like cues for yourself on what feels good. Yeah.
Okay, one more question from Deshawn. Does the letters on the stamps wear down over time with use?
I'm sure they do, but we've stamped thousands and thousands and thousands of bracelets, and it has been, nothing really wears, nothing has really worn. The only thing that does wear is probably this center part of the sticker, because we're just constantly pounding on it. But in terms of like the stamping base and the letters and the hammer itself, I've never had to replace any of it. And Val, she is our partners and events specialist, and so she's done many conferences and with our artisans, and I don't think we've ever had to replace any that because of wear. We've maybe had to replace them because we've lost a couple of stamps here and there. Yeah. Yes, we do have replacement stickers ready for order, and we also have a sort of like a PDF template. So if you wanted to print it out on paper, or if you have your own stickers that you prefer using, we do have like a template that you can print out on paper. Yeah. So I'm gonna show you how to do 2 words, because I think that's also something important. So I've gone ahead and written out, can you see this? I've gone ahead and kind of made a template. So I've drawn a token, I put focus on the bottom. And then what you want to do is, if you want to do stay focused, that's our, if anybody wants to get certified, that's our phrase that we have everyone practice making for their certification. So, so you have stay focused, you write it, and then you see how each focused is an uneven number of letters, and then stay is an even number of letters. So what you're going to do is, I like to go through the center, make the token into 2. So then you know the spacing. This is purely for the spacing of purely for the spacing of the top letter. So you know where it will go in relation to the bottom one. And so then, you know, the U is here, is in between the T and the A. And so then you're going to draw a line. The S is going to be between the S and the T. And the C is going to be between the A and the Y. And so, you know, that means that this S, you know, will be just like 2 spaces away from the center line. And so what I do, does that make sense to everybody? It's sort of just, it's just for your own visualization of the token. And so what we do whenever we stamp 2 words, the word on top, you're gonna take your stamping base and flip it over 180 degrees. And so the upper ledge is further away from you. And then you're gonna put your token back on. And so the string is covering up the word focused. And so I have, you can see that. And so that's where this dotted blue line comes in. It's the same principle. So I have it in the center of focused is the U. So I have that at the center. And so I'm gonna rotate my token 2 ways so then I know where to start stamping. So this is just like a general guideline. And so you know, like, okay, so the center of the bottom letter is a U. So then that's where the space between the T and the A go. S will be between the A and the Y, or T will be between the A and the Y, and then the S will be that space. So then you're starting, and so whenever you rotate your token on the bottom, you're going to the left, and then whenever you go on top, you're going to the left again. So you're sort of always, you're just making your way around the token. So I have it centered. And then whenever you line up your letter stamp again, I use my thumb now as my anchor on my center peg, keep a tight grip on the letters, and then here we go. You see that? Have it S and the T, and then I'll rotate. So the T is where the dotted line is, and then I'll have it, that's where my A is going to be. We go. We have stay focused. And so if you can see the top letters, there's a couple letters that are like this A is sort of diagonal, and it's a little bit off in terms of the vertical alignment, right, to the other letters. It's a little bit up and to the side. And so, and then the T is a deeper impression than, like the T is probably the deepest impression that I have of the 2 words. And so it is, but if you look at it as a token, I mean, hopefully you can see that. But if you look at it as a complete token, you know, it is doing what it is meant to do, and it is helping me remember to stay focused. So and as you play with your practice tokens in your kit, you'll be able to find sort of your own cadence, your own style. You'll be able to start with you know, drawing it out at first, and then maybe as you get more practice, you're like, okay, no, I don't need this anymore. I know kind of where I want to start when it comes to 2 letters. So everything that we're showing you today is just the guideline of it, and not, it's not the rule of it at all. It's to have fun, you know?
Okay, Annie, technical question. Does the picture of the letter on the peg face, so when you're doing your second word, does the letter face you or away from you?
Always facing you. Yeah, your letter will always face you so that they're all facing the same way. So it'll be like stay focused. And if someone wants a word that, you know, goes all the way around, you don't have to flip your token around. You can just, you'll just do it continuously. And then that will get you the sort of letters facing away from each other. But yeah, when you will always want your letter to face you. Always. Yeah.
Okay, another question, a little bit different topic. If you are, do you sell any of your bracelets? And if so, how do you decide where to price it?
So you can become a certified maker. So certified makers are the people who choose to sell their creations. We have maker certification page, which you'll find a lot of information on. Like any questions that you have for business will be on the maker certification page. And pricing, it truly depends on, so we don't allow people to sell online. And so this is sort of like a mail-in, that mother-daughter team, they take orders through email and then they mail it out. And so they don't have an online store. I think that's the technical term that we say whenever you're an online retailer. So it's like not having an Etsy shop. There are some makers who have been with us since like 2014, 2015, when the Maker Kit first started. And they have online stores, and so they're grandfathered into a certain clause. But yeah, for anybody outside of that, we ask that you don't have an online store, so taking payments online. And for pricing, if you're doing it, we've had people do it for fundraisers. Schools do it for fundraisers a lot. And that truly depends on how much you think people will buy it. We always just give the guideline of, you can start with the prices that we offer on our website, sort of as to gauge if people are willing to. And then from there, you can see if you need to price any lower. Yeah. And then any other questions?
Let's see, we're at request for some animal stamps, so it could be kind of cute. Holly asked, as a certified maker, we can create a Facebook page, correct?
Yeah, yes, you can. Yeah. And no, we don't have an affiliate program. As a maker, and if you want to sell your own pieces, that's totally up to you. You don't have to. We don't really have any affiliate programs at the moment. Katie and I have been bouncing around these ideas for a little while, and so stay tuned, because you know, our maker group and our maker community will be growing, and we don't want to say never, so we just don't have it at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, Annie, I don't know if you see Carol's question. She said, I just started and made 2 bracelets with the adjustable style, but the little third piece of string keeps falling off. Any suggestions?
Oh, so this is a bracelet making question?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a couple of videos on our website. It's the how to tie bracelets and knots. So you're talking about this piece, the actual adjustable piece falling off. It's all about the type of string that you use too. So we use a waxed nylon string, and that gives it a little bit of a grip whenever you tie it together. And then I actually like to use a lighter, and not to burn it, but just to sort of soften the wax so that whenever it gets cold and hardens again, it kind of reinforces itself. But we do have a few resources on that, and we'll be building out some more on like the actual tying bracelet portion of being a maker. But yeah, today we just wanted to focus on stamping. And so if anybody has any questions on stamping in particular, that would I would love to answer that. And if not, then we can continue with the very last bit of the lesson. I'm going to start sharing my screen again. Oh, no. Okay, and so we addressed this a little bit earlier, but perfectionism, we want people to focus on the perfection of the conversation that you just had, and it's wonderful and beautiful, and how has this story, you know, resonated within yourself and with the other person. And so the picture is actually a token that Chris Pan, founder of MyIntent, he stamped. So he was at a brunch and he stamped this deathbed for Conan O'Brien, and they were just chit-chatting, and that was his word, you know, like what do, when I'm on my deathbed, what will I think about? I want to make that count. So whatever how he lives his life, how he remembers his life, at the end is how he wants to live his life. And so then Chris stamped his word, but if you notice, the E on bed is actually backwards. And so he gave it to Conan, and he was like, wow, that's perfect. That's even better. You know, so it's that perfection of that conversation, you know, of that thought-provoking conversation and that feeling behind it. And so it creates that memory in this token. And so I'm going to share a few resources that we have. We have, first, this is our site. So we have, if you are a maker, and we have all of these use cases that you can use. We have a lot of teachers have used it in their classrooms and for their schools and for their clubs. So this is always a great place to click through. A lot of people use it for fundraising. So we actually walk through local fundraisers and online fundraisers, and we give you sort of a guideline on all of the nitty-gritty pricing things, and even a rough template for an order form. So if you're, you know, if you got your maker kit for one specific reason, there are so many other places that you can bring it. And so I want to share that little bit with you. And then if you haven't already seen our MyIntent Makers group, you can go to facebook.com/group/MyIntent Maker. And this is your interaction, your space to interact with all of the other makers that have joined us, and, you know, sharing their creations, sharing their stories. And if you use the search bar up here, you can ask your questions that you have. There's so much information in this group that someone has asked that question, and there have been videos and people coming to answer them. So it's a great wealth of knowledge in this group. The other group that I would like to share is the Intentional Living group, which Val heads, and she's wonderful in facilitating this group. Val, do you want to speak a little bit about the Intentional Living Group?
Sure. Hi, guys. Yeah, so the Intentional Living Group is just to come and share inspiration. It's a way for you guys to just connect with each other in the inner work that you're doing. Whereas the Maker is specifically around how you're bringing My Intent and your Maker Kit out in the community. This is kind of all about you and your own inner work and your journey towards living with greater intention and whatever that means to you. So it's a fun way to just connect and share with one another.
Awesome. Thanks, Val. Yeah, we have a lot of makers who are actually in both groups. So you'll see sort of, you get to know someone on many different levels. And the very last thing, and I think this is really important, or at least it gives a lot of space, is so we have My Intent live sessions. If you've ever attended any of our Inner Warrior trainings or any of our group classes, if you go to myintent.org/live, you'll find our entire schedule for our Zoom classes. And so we have two classes next week, Tuesday and Thursday, and they're How to Find Your Word sessions. I'm gonna stop share and, oh shoot, nope, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, so you'll be able to see you'll be able to see how these Hoffman, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna be here with you right now. Okay, so these How to Find Your Word sessions, right? They're led by these Hoffman Institute coaches. And these coaches are coaches that are part of empowering emotional intelligence leadership programs for transformational work and things like that. And so they're really great at facilitating conversation and having people be quite reflective. And so 9 a.m. Tuesday, July 21st and Thursday, July 23rd, there are our next sessions for How to Find Your Word. And with that, that's specific to finding your own word, but there could be some bits of how they led you to find your word that you can then take and apply it to the conversations that you'll have with other people, you know, and kind of spark that your own style if something resonates with you in those sessions. So that's, and you can sign up for those classes on the myintent.org/live just by clicking on the sessions. Yeah. So do we have any final questions? Before I wrap it up. And thank you so much for your time tonight. And so thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. It has been a joy to be with you all, and I want to close out with this statement. We believe there is purpose inside each of us, and we want to encourage people to share more truth and inspiration. So we are so glad to welcome you to our Maker family, our My Intent family. All of our resources are available to you. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to me. You have it whenever you registered for this Zoom session. Feel free to reach out in the Maker group. And thank you so much. We'll also be sharing this recording next week. And then, yeah, so be on the lookout for that if you wanted to rewatch it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Annie. Thank you, everyone.